An off-duty police officer thinks he's watching shoplifters and that a First Nations youth stole an energy drink. Things escalate and a family friend ends up in hospital.
When people see the video, the level of force that's used.
Something like that should happen to each and every one of their goddamn kids.
Here's Jorge Barrera from our investigative unit to break down what happened and a warning: you are about to see some disturbing images.
Shortly after 9:40 p.m., November 15th, 2019, it's a Friday night in Belleville, Ontario that's about to change lives. The moment captured by multiple security cameras. A young teenager, his father and a friend, all from the nearby Tyendinaga Mohawk Reserve, arrive at a Taco Bell for a bite. They're being tailed by this off-duty officer, Constable Paul Fike. He followed them from a Lowe's hardware store, believing they shoplifted and that the teenager had stolen an energy drink. Fike calls dispatch. Belleville police respond. 1, 2, 3 cruisers arrive. Officers search the truck but find nothing. Officers enter the Taco Bell. Constable Jeffrey Smith, seen here, tells them they're all under arrest for a theft of a drink and suspicion they may have stolen other goods. The father and son agree to head outside to clear things up. They're handcuffed. Mario Baptiste Jr. remains seated. He says he didn't steal anything, shows his hardware store receipt. Smith grabs him, pulls. Fike, still off duty, runs in. They tackle Baptiste Jr., who loses consciousness. They deliver first aid and call an ambulance. Baptiste Jr. is taken out on a stretcher.
Baptiste Jr. was taken to hospital that night. He was found with a broken finger, a cracked rib. The Special Investigations Unit, the SIU, the agency tasked with death or serious injury cases involving police, did not open an immediate probe. The Baptiste family filed multiple complaints. 13 months after the incident, the SIU opened an investigation.
He lost vital signs. He was unconscious.
Stan Jolly, a retired senior civil servant in the Ministry of the Attorney General, doesn't understand why the SIU didn't immediately investigate.
Under normal circumstances, if the SIU were to invoke its mandate and start an investigation, the Taco Bell would have been surrounded with yellow tape.
In May 2021, the SIU ultimately charged the officers Fike and Smith with assault causing bodily harm. Neither the SIU nor the Belleville police will say anything more until the trial is wrapped. For its part, the hardware store never filed a complaint over any stolen items, and no charges were ever laid.
This was for a Powerade or a Gatorade.
Toronto lawyer Asha James represents Mario Baptiste Jr. in his separate civil suit against the Belleville police.
What's really unique about this is that, this off-duty officer took it upon himself to investigate this, it seems, allegation from employees at Lowe's.
This video, along with a recorded interview between the SIU and Constable Jill McCauley, pictured here, were filed in the ongoing criminal trial of Fike and Smith.
You've been identified by the SIU as a witness.
She says officers only had one solid piece of evidence.
Do you have any idea from your knowledge of this investigation as to what was stolen from Lowe's?
A drink.
Okay, and was the drink located?
Not that I know of.
But the encounter would exact a heavy price from Baptiste Jr. Baptiste Jr.'s parents, Mario Sr. and Kathy Baptiste, have waited 4 years to see this video.
So that's him kneeing him, right?
Yeah.
I've never expected this, ever in my life. Maybe if you're protesting like we protest, or something shit happens.
Something like that should happen to each and every one of their goddamn kids.
Baptiste Jr. wants his story told, but he's not ready to speak. His parents say he's been left with lasting emotional scars.
He's definitely not himself.
No. Like, why do you have to look after over your shoulders?
His father says there are historical racial tensions between Tyendinaga and Belleville.
And they're racist. I've lived in this area my entire life. I've lived on this reserve. I know all about the city of Belleville.
In a statement of defense filed in the separate civil suit, the Belleville police say Baptiste Jr. failed to obey reasonable commands from uniformed police officers and is the author of his own misfortune. The criminal trial of Fike and Smith is nearly done, but questions remain over why it took the SIU 13 months to investigate this case.
There needs to be an inquiry into what happened here, who covered it up, if there was a cover-up. Was there an honest misunderstanding about what constitutes a serious injury?
Questions that 4 years later still need answers. Jorge Barrera, CBC News, Belleville, Ontario.
Next, those entities helping Hamas with its massive stockpile of weapons.
There are weapons in Gaza, for example, that we have tracked from the 2011 conflict in Libya.
The so-called axis of resistance. Next. For a disturbing sign of where things may be going, check out this recent show of military might by militants in Yemen. Other extremist groups hostile to Israel also dropping hints they are itching to fight.
There has been a decision made to start unifying the fronts.
Together, they call themselves the Axis of Resistance. Those are the places and forces that may tell the story of what the world could be in for next, because what so many are desperate to avoid is something more widespread than the horrors we've already seen. The less talked about moments on the periphery of the Israel-Hamas war need a look. They're not huge attacks, but they're dangerous, they matter, and they might be changing.
We are seeing escalation on the Lebanese-Israeli front. We are seeing missiles from the Houthis. We are seeing missiles and rockets from Iraqi militias attacking U.S. assets in Syria and Iraq.
This is Rhonda Slim of the Middle East Institute. And she's talking about a term and group we might soon hear a lot about. They call themselves the Axis of Resistance, entities funded by and ideologically aligned with Iran. What does it mean? Who is in it?
Axis of Resistance refers to an umbrella, if you can put it, organization that includes Hamas, includes Islamic Jihad on the Palestinian side, Hezbollah on the Lebanese side, various militias in Syria affiliated with Iran, various militias in Iraq affiliated with Iran. And of course, it includes the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. It's part of what they call the forward defense strategy. There has been a decision made by Iran, along with its partners and proxies, to start unifying the fronts. And that was announced about a year and a half ago. If Israel thinks of attacking any of us, I mean in the resistance axis, it's going to be a multi-front war confronting Israel.
This is how world wars start.
Exactly. I mean, so far, everybody is a little bit restrained and deterred by the fear of this regional war, because they know what this regional war looks like.
So here's what we're talking about. In the north, you have Hezbollah with its said 150,000 long-range precision missiles aimed directly at Israel. Then in Iraq and Syria, the Iran-backed militias there have been increasing their drone attacks against American bases. Because the U.S. is the main backer of Israel, the message from Iran there is back off. And then there's Yemen, some 2,000 kilometers away. The Houthi rebels there, trained, backed by Iran, have been increasing their sporadic missile fire at Israel. So far, that's more flex than fight. The Houthis quick to release a video days ago showing off weaponry and intent, declaring war on Israel. So now Israel has sent missile defensive ships to the Red Sea, the U.S., 2 aircraft carriers, and a nuclear-powered submarine to the Mediterranean. And there's more posturing in Tehran daily. Iranian state media reporting the leader of Hamas met Iran's supreme leader recently, as they did in June. So the money and training and ideology are all Iran. The might, though, rests largely with Hezbollah. Curiously, in his speech recently, Hezbollah's leader did not indicate a multi-front offensive was imminent. What are the reasons why it wouldn't want to expand this?
Hezbollah understand they are operating in a country that is facing dire economic straits. The majority of the Lebanese public opinion does not want a war.
Iran, too, has its own domestic chaos, maybe worried that going bigger on a war might threaten its stability. Here's another calculation. Iran and its proxies may not believe that they actually need a larger war. They know that the history of attempted regime changes suggests they rarely work. So Israel talks of destroying Hamas, but there's no guarantee that at the end of all this bloodshed, Hamas, or the idea of Hamas, will actually be gone. If Iran's reported red line for getting more involved is the destruction of Hamas, then it will closely watch the rate of rocket fire from Gaza into Israel. That it continues with such ferocity suggests Hamas has been stockpiling for this moment for years.
You have to think that they were aware this was a possible retaliation, so you would expect them to have held some of these weapons in strategic reserve.
This is weapons specialist Nick Jensen-Jones. Presumably since October 7th, there's no resupplying for Hamas.
The resupply is going to become more difficult from external sources, but Hamas has maintained an internal capability to produce weapons, including rockets, and I expect that their relatively simple rocket designs will continue to be produced as the conflict is waged.
When Hamas launched its murderous atrocities, those who could bring themselves to look at the horrors captured on body cameras saw more than the bloody rampage. They started to take account of the weapons, grenades, RPGs, even weapons from North Korea. This all paints a picture, and tracking the weaponry is what Jensen-Jones does.
North Korea has been a strong supporter of Palestinian independence for decades. They've supplied arms for decades, again, almost entirely through Iran.
How are these weapons getting in there?
A lot of it small-scale smuggling. There's capture from Israeli forces, so from previous conflicts, and already we've seen from this most recent attack, Israeli weapons being captured and already repurposed. And then there's the more concerted efforts to supply Hamas maritime and land-based smuggling, primarily maritime. So there are weapons in Gaza, for example, that we have tracked from the 2011 conflict in Libya, and we know some of those came over the sea from Libya to Gaza.
That he knows from serial numbers and open source intelligence. But the bulk of what he says Hamas has is either old or locally produced. If there's something more powerful in the arsenal, they're hiding it or lying in wait.
I expect that over the coming weeks and months, we'll have a pretty good handle on what percentage of the arsenal has been expended.
While Hamas still has its weapons stockpile and hides behind its hostages, the so-called axis of resistance may not see the need to escalate. But a lot can change. Confusion on the ground, mistakes, rogue generals, Palestinians getting pushed out of Gaza. The region is a tinderbox, and any of that may make it ignite. Now, there's a more immediate question. What of the estimated 242 hostages in Gaza? Israeli Gershom Baskin is a prolific hostage negotiator. For years, he has liaised with Hamas spokesperson Ghazi Hamid and was on the phone to Hamas right after October 7th. And then he cut contact for reasons you will soon understand. I spoke with Gershom Baskin earlier this week. Before Hamas's attack of October 7th, how often were you in contact with Hamas and why?
For the last 8 years, I've been negotiating with Hamas, trying to get the release of the bodies of 2 Israeli soldiers who were killed in 2014 and 2 Israeli civilians who are living and are in Gaza since 2014. I had proposed to my interlocutor, the main interlocutor was Dr. Ghazi Hamid, that we meet face-to-face somewhere, found 2 or 3 countries that we could meet in order for us to brainstorm together on how to break this deadlock between Israel and Hamas. There was a brief period in the summer of 2022 when he seemed willing to meet me, and then he backed off from it. I've been trying to push him in the last months for us to meet for a couple of days in Cairo. He at that point told me I'm not allowed. I think by that time he already knew that something big was planned in the military operation.
So that's interesting. That's a little telling, eh?
Yeah, I think so. When the war started and I was communicating with him from the second day of the war, and I asked him about his family and he didn't answer. And then a few days later, I discovered that he wasn't even in Gaza.
When you heard about the hostages at first, did you genuinely think we can come up with a deal here?
And when I heard the dimensions of it, I knew immediately that the only deal that they would accept would be the all for all the prisoners. And I'm pretty sure I know Hamas well enough to think that they would not accept a partial deal at this point. Their backs are against the wall. I think that there is still a potential deal on the table. I don't know how any Israeli government would accept it. It's an impossible dilemma of releasing probably around 7,000 Palestinian prisoners. On the other hand, Israel has a moral responsibility to bring them home because Israel failed to protect them.
Has there been proof of life for all of them, or?
No. People who are hostages need life-saving medication, and we're trying to find ways to get them into Gaza. There was an offer made by one of the groups that we would send in big packages of medication for the children of Gaza, along with a separate package of medication for the hostages, and see if that can maybe get into Gaza. So Hamas is just not cooperating with any of these attempts to help the hostages, provide information about them, give any assurance to their families.
Your communication has changed. I mean, you have cut it off now. What happened with Ghazi Hamid's statement that shook you to your core?
At the beginning, he was denying that they even killed civilians in Israel. And then after he could no longer deny it because it was so vivid, it was all over the media, he justified it. And he said, we did it and we're going to continue to do it. We'll have 1 million October 7s. We will annihilate Israel. And that crossed a red line for me in terms of him being worthy enough for me to talk to.
Do you believe that there are any negotiations happening and that maybe it's just happening at a level that you're not aware of?
There are negotiations taking place in the Qatari track that the Americans are also engaged in. There are negotiations taking at the place of the Egyptian intelligence, and they have connections to the military command of Hamas. There are reports of a third track going on with American involvement out of Beirut. Ultimately, the decisions are going to be made underground in Gaza and by the Israeli government, who's going to have to agree to some kind of negotiated agreement.
Do you think they ever will?
I think we still have time to exhaust every possibility for a negotiated deal. It's not done yet, and it's very difficult.
You take care, sir.
Thank you.
The hostages' families hang on to the almost daily drip of rumors that a deal is near for 10 hostages and then 50, and yet they get disappointed every single day. It is getting harder. Next, a symbol to honor veterans is transformed.
It represents indigeneity in such a strong way, and it's also very beautiful.
A tribute to Indigenous veterans in our moment. As we noted earlier, today marks Indigenous Veterans Day, and one artist is honoring the day by creating these beaded poppies. For Joyce Hunter, the powerful pieces also have a personal connection. Tonight, the traditional beadwork is our moment.
Beading is beautiful. It is an extension of who we are. So I'm working on beaded poppies. It represents indigeneity in such a strong way, and it's also very beautiful. My maternal great uncle, he went to serve in the First World War, and it's very important to me as a First Nation member to honor him. Our people, they stepped up to the plate, and they did that to protect their treaties because to them it was a sacred agreement, and they served in many different capacities. Some of them were code breakers, some of them served as nurses, and then of course there were those who served on the front line.
The poppy came to represent veterans and survival and of the protection of rights and freedoms. And I like that people get to wear that, carry that, because there's a lot of meaning behind it. And I think that that's important.
All the poppies are beautiful and special. These are extraordinary, as are the people they honor. For all of us at the National, thank you for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.